Action Park in Vernon Valley, New Jersey, in the 80s. That the Murphy children would only be on each other's teams was generally true, no more than for me. I spent my childhood enjoying the company of my siblings, myself, and books. As Larchmont is small and my family large and formidable, everyone knew me, or of me, by my eyebrows and eyes. Or, okay, my reputation as being the innocent-looking but terribly wicked Murphy brother. People identified me as such even over my clear gayness because Thomas was also clearly gay, and really, my cruelty was the stuff of legend. I didn't have any friends in school, I was frightening and uninterested in friends, and so it all worked out for me for the first 11 grades. Senior year at Larchmont High, my classmates got all nostalgic about growing up and becoming adults and leaving school and town. This caused my peers, many of my peers, to take a second look at me. I imagine them thinking, yeah, he's a fag, but he's the class of '84 fag. Or, more likely, yeah, he's a sociopath, but he's our sociopath. Whatever their motivation, the kids I had known all my life but never did anything with outside of school suddenly put me on their nostalgia. No one was more surprised than I when I got invited to this party or that barbecue, this trip to Jones Beach, or, and this is how it all started, that trip to Action Park in New Jersey. Tommy Gilligan, Tommy, and Thomas John, TJ, Hallinan, were best friends and had been all of their lives. Among their friends was Baker Steele, an average-looking fella who had a series of, this is him today, this is not a high school thing. An average-looking fella who had a series of girlfriends beginning in 5th grade, but who was best friends with Tommy and TJ too. Like, all of them were best friends when Baker wasn't going steady with a female classmate. For a reason I couldn't figure out then, but did so years later when straight-appearing Tommy came out of the closet, he, TJ, and then unattached Baker asked me to go to Action Park with them the last weekend of summer 1983. More specifically, the Wednesday before, when Tommy and I were lifeguarding at Larchmont's Manor Beach, he said to me, "We're going on Saturday, want to come?" He asked this as he relieved me on the guard chair from which we oversaw the modest beach on Long Island Sound. "Are you kidding me?" I said, truly surprised. "No," he insisted. "I talked to TJ and Baker and we want you to come." I didn't believe him and asked a second time, "Are you kidding me?" "No, Chris, I'm not. Baker's got his mother's job and we're leaving at 7 a.m. Do you want to come or not?" "Tommy, if you're setting me up, you know what I'll do to you." "I've known you all my life, Chris. I know better than to trick you." "Okay, just so that we're clear. We'll pick you up at 6:45, he asked. The idea of it was so strange, being invited by my classmates to something social and going. In spite of Tommy's assurance, I still couldn't believe it and nearly asked a third time if he was kidding me. Instead, I said, "Okay." I didn't tell anyone in my family to where I had been invited and by whom. This was because when Tommy, TJ, and Baker didn't show up, the revenge I would take on them would be all mine. And I didn't think my parents or anyone else would believe it either. I was awake at 6:30, showered and drinking coffee my father had prepared as he had gotten up before me. Dad didn't ask why I was awake because, like him and my mother, I was an early riser. He did ask who was pulling up in our driveway in a silver Saab. "Baker Steele," I said. "He and 2 other guys asked me to go to Action Park in New Jersey with them today." "They did?" my father asked, choking on his coffee. "I know," I said. "What is that all about?" I said goodbye and left the house with a bag containing my wallet, a towel, and change of clothes in case we got a meal someplace later. As I walked down the back porch steps to the driveway, my father stepped outside and said, "Chris?" "What?" I asked, turning around. He gestured for me to come back up the stairs and, because I was a cheeky monkey always, I sighed and made a big show of kissing him goodbye on his cheek, as if I had forgotten. This made my father, who disdained any public display of affection, especially from his grown sons, shake his head and push me away. He did smile a bit as he dug his wallet out of his pants and pulled a $20 bill out of it. "I have money, Dad," I said, touched. "Just take it and have a good time." I wanted to hug and kiss him for real, but knew better, and so just play punched him on his left arm and said, "Thanks, Daddy-o." I spun around and went back down the stairs to the driveway. Baker had put his car in neutral, and he, Tommy, and TJ stepped out of their 3 doors almost at once, said, "Hi, Mr. Murphy." My father didn't know their first names, but he recognized them, from around town, and he replied, "Hello, boys." The poor guy was reeling, but managed to add, "You have fun and don't get into any trouble." Almost at once, my 3 companions said, "We won't, Mr. Murphy." Baker popped his trunk and I put my back in it and then opened the remaining door and got in the back next to TJ. My father waved and the 4 of us waved and Baker honked the horn and once and we pulled out of the driveway. "How much did your dad give you, Murph?" TJ asked. $20, I said, and then held it toward Baker. "For gas." He looked at me through the rearview window kind of strangely. He didn't take it or respond right away. I kept my arm extended toward him while he figured it out and said finally, "It's good." Baker shook his head and added, "We're good." In those few moments, I realized that Baker had been the holdout, and that Tommy and TJ, or maybe Tommy alone, thought to ask me to join them and that Baker had initially objected. It was so obvious to everyone. I withdrew my arm and TJ grabbed the bill, more to lighten the mood than anything, and said, "I'll gas up my car later, thanks, Murph." Murph. No one called me Murph. My older brother's friends called them Murph, and my little brother, Little Murph. But no one had ever called me anything but Chris or, the devil. "Okay," I said, retrieving the bill from TJ and adding it to the 50 I had in my wallet. We hit the Manor Deli first thing and all went in together. Baker got smokes and a Coke, TJ a bagel, Tommy all kinds of muffins and cupcakes, and me coffee. We got back in the Saab in the same seats and hit the road for real. The drive to northwestern Jersey was, I can't remember and don't feel like map questing it, an hour, 2. We spent it talking about school and colleges and girls. They talked about schools and colleges, actually, as I just sat quietly and sipped my coffee. As well, and for as long as the 4 of us had known each other, they were friends and I was someone new. I was fine with that and enjoyed their conversation. On occasion, Tommy or TJ would ask me something like where I planned to apply, and I said, "Boston College. Thomas goes there and he seems to like it." "Catholic college?" Tommy remarked. "Yeah," I added, "that should make Mother happy." "Gonna be a priest?" Baker asked. "Not in this lifetime," I said without hesitation. We got to the park quickly, it seemed, and only shortly after it opened. Briefly, Action Park, also called Traction Park and Class Action Park, I'm not kidding, was an amusement park, it's on the net, was an amusement park in Vernon Valley that operated in the 80s and 90s. It had water and other rides, all extremely dangerous. Most notorious was the Alpine Slide, where you sat on a sled and went zooming down a concrete track using a pitiful handbrake of sorts that was supposed to slow you down for curves, but was really useless. Go too fast and risk jumping the track and crashing into a hay bale on the side of the hill on which it was built. Go too slow and the guy in back of you crashes into you and you both die. Injuries, citations, lawsuits, and 1 or 2 actual deaths. The Alpine Slide was the park's signature ride, and the first one we hit. Also a mess was the tidal wave pool, which was always totally crowded and extremely rough. It had something like a dozen lifeguards on duty at once, jumping in, rescuing somebody, getting back on the guard chair, and jumping in again. Just watching all the saves was worth the price of admission. The Tarzan jump, super speed water slide, roaring rapids, super fast go-karts, patrons confused with bumper cars, and at the entrance, the cannonball loop. Caused nearly as many broken bones and irreversible comas.
Oh my God.
I had heard about the park, but had no immediate desire to die, so never made an attempt to go. Then Tommy invited me. We parked, took our sunglasses, wallets, and towels, and headed for the entrance, getting kind of excited and kind of scared. All of us. My new friends sat in silence, told me that they were having second thoughts about breaking their necks on the underground Waterslide's infamous 90-degree turn, a slide that dumped you in a pool so crowded it wasn't uncommon to land on a swimmer and break his neck too. As we crossed the lot, I noticed 3 very tall, very nicely built and very handsome college-age guys in bright board shorts and flip-flops. I was usually discreet about checking out strangers in public places as, for all my formidability, it was still America in the 80s. Well, that morning I held my gaze a moment too long, imagining the three of them getting their grooves on with each other. One of them, a hottie whose curly brown hair contained natural blonde highlights, caught me looking. I saw him see me and turned away quickly, hoping and praying that he wouldn't make a fuss in front of my straight classmates. Well, I didn't pray hard enough because Curly got his friend's attention, pointed toward me and said super loud, "Hey, that fag was chucking us out. Hey fag, how's it hanging?" The day was ruined. Right then, I looked at the asphalt, too mortified to look at the others, and, this is unusual, too cowed to respond. Curly's two friends also said, "Hey," and "faggot," and "are you all faggots or just the one with the eyebrows?" Tommy whispered, "Ignore them, Chris." I responded, only loud enough for Baker, TJ, and him to hear, "I'm sorry." Baker, who drove a Saab, enjoyed a trust fund so large he didn't have to go to college and could have spent every day of his life at Action Park, said, "Chris, we knew what we were getting into when we asked you to join us. We could give a shit about those fuckers." He looked at them, cute as they are. Wow, I thought. Wow. Someone was cool as shit. Three young men were as cool as any that ever lived. They knew that in hanging out with me, people might think they were gay, and they didn't care. Even as the college fucks continued to shout stuff at us, Baker lit up a cigarette, and TJ asked for a bite of Tommy's devil dog, and I kept walking face forward and feeling very lucky to be hanging out with these three guys. Our disinterest caused the college assholes to stop haranguing us, for the time being. We bought our tickets and headed right to the Alpine slide, down which we crashed into hay bales and each other so often that at its bottom we stood around comparing and counting our cuts and scrapes. TJ had the most. Baker had the fewest. Tommy had a cut on his forehead, though, which trumped all. "Hey, faggot, you gonna lick each other's wounds?" asked one of Curly's friends. The four of us watched the three of them sipping beer before noon as they walked up the hill toward the Alpine slide entrance. Baker answered them by grabbing Tommy's head and licking the length of his wound. Something I thought was hilarious and, kind of hot. And kind of hot than the earlier fantasy I had about the college guys. TJ laughed super hard at that. The college trio grimaced and said more shit, and I laughed too. "Now it's infected," Tommy said to Baker, who shot his tongue in and out of his mouth as if he were performing cunnilingus or something. I told his move. So gross. We laughed again, and then we went to the super speed water slide. It was our goal to hit each ride at that park, no matter the level of danger or the number of injuries we sustained at each. "Does that include the cannonball loop?" TJ asked of the pseudo water slide with the 360-degree loop that was open for, conveniently, the month during which we visited before being shut down by the state or some amusement park commission or something. "Oh yeah," Baker said, "unless you want to walk home." The water slide was a good time, though scarier than I thought because when you first launch, you were basically free-falling for several seconds. The rapids was boring and irritating because there were so many people on them. Ditto the wave pool. Still, we did them because none of us wanted to hitchhike back to Larchmont. After those two, we got something to eat somewhere, then relaxed in the sunshine somewhere else, and then headed to the go-karts. The line was so long, Baker said, I could crawl home before we got to the front. And then, Tarzan swing. He was clearly the leader of the group, and it made me wonder who, between Tommy and TJ, was dominant when Baker was hanging out with his many girlfriends. There was a line at the swing, the Tarzan swing, but it wasn't as long and it moved faster. Also, it was fun watching people ahead of you jumping off into the murky, fetid pool below. People did wacky jumps, deliberate belly flops, and even dropped their shorts as they swung out into midair. Well, wouldn't you know it, those college fucks got on the line about 10 people behind us. We realized this when one super skinny kid swung out and tore off his shorts, dropped them, and then jumped into the water after them. Curly saw me, and said, "Hey, eyebrows, did that turn you on?" I didn't acknowledge him, and none of us had wounds fresh enough for Baker to lick. We stood patiently waiting for each person in front of us to jump. No one dropped his shorts after the skinny kid did. Not, that is, until Curly decided it was his turn. He cut in line, bullying himself past everyone, purposely knocking each of the four of us as he went by, and finding himself at the front. "Hey, eyebrows, check this out," he hollered at me. Then, even before grabbing the swing, he removed his shorts, threw them in the water, let out a Tarzan yell, and naked swung out over the water. More concerned with embarrassing me than letting go of the swing so as to ensure he hit the water in the gentlest way, Curly just winged it and wound up landing flat on his back. When he's like, snack! Yeah, louder! When he surfaced, though, really, he never actually went underwater. It was to derisive laughter and applause by everyone online, including his own two friends. This pissed him off tremendously. So much that he smacked the surface of the water a couple of times with his open right hand, in a rage. His back hurt, he was being laughed at, and he couldn't find his shorts. He looked and looked, even as other people swung after him. Well, it turns out the skinny kid who had dropped his shorts before had snuck back into the water and taken them while everyone was looking at the angry college fuck. From the edge of the pool, he held them up. "You looking for these assholes?" He shouted. "Oh boy," Tommy said. "Uh-huh," said TJ. "Right on," Baker said. I didn't say anything out loud, though I was shouting inside. Curly's stunt had backfired, and now he was even 10 times madder at those 4 faggots who were to blame. Curly's friends left the Tarzan line and ran toward the skinny kid, who saw them coming and dropped the shorts on the ground and then rubbed them into the dirt with his right foot, just to be a bitch, before taking off. Love him. What he's doing today. One of the guys picked them up and threw them into the water. While they did this, Baker said, "Let's do this last," and the 4 of us disappeared. We did a couple of other things, always on the lookout for the college assholes. We even went back to the Tarzan swing, and TJ dropped his shorts, and Tommy did, and then I did, but, only after the other 2. In only doing it after my companions, I wasn't rubbing in the trouble I had inadvertently caused when checking out Curly and his pals in the lot that morning, Mm-hmm. After the swing, we had 2 more places to hit, a 30-foot cliff dive and the cannonball loop. Baker, a smoker, had run out of steam, and Tommy was tired too. TJ did track and I swam, so we were good to go. We arrived at the cliff, on top of which other parkgoers stared into the water so very far below, deciding if it was really worth spending the rest of their lives in a wheelchair for the thrill. Bruised and bloody from every other ride at the park, the dive didn't seem to be that much more dangerous or painful. So I marched up to the edge, my friends right behind me. As I prepared to dive headfirst off the manufactured cliff, I heard Curly shout, "Hey, eyebrows! I saw your Tarzan jump!" Fuck, I thought for a split second. Less than that, actually. Fuck, fuck, fuck.